Testing. 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 Test. Testing. Hello. Test. Testing. Hello. Test. Testing. Hello. Test. Testing. Test. Okay, that's better. Okay, so it's recording. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with something simple. Okay, so now that I have that, um, since this is my first stream, first video, I'm going to talk about my origin story, how I got into tech, and the steps I took to get here, and why I'm even doing this in the first place. That is, making any kind of content at all. Um, to get started, I've, I think, like a lot of other people who got into tech, there's something that, in particular, that drew me into it. It's different for everyone. I have a lot of friends who are in the tech industry who got started because of video games, and that is how I started. So I was a big Nintendo fan, and as a kid, I played the heck out of it, as I'm sure many others did as well. And I realized that I liked it so much, I might want to make my own video game. And how do you do that? Well, you have to learn how to program. So when I was young, we're talking early 90s here, I had a machine and a family computer, and I just got on it and started building whatever I could. Um, that's how I got started. Then I had to move out of my house when I was 17, so I never finished high school. I still have not even a GED, no secondary education, anything like that. I basically crashed at a friend's house for a year on his couch and taught myself everything I could, read anything I could pick up at a library or found online, and just worked for free, honestly. I offered my services for free online, such as they were at the time, and anybody who was willing to, take a shot at having me build something for them, um, I just did grab whatever I could. And then after about a year and a half of that, maybe 2 years, um, I started getting serious with my experience, and I started getting paid for it, which is great. Um, and the rest is history, as they say. So the whole point of kind of explaining that and talking about it, I've been told, is a good story to encourage other people who might feel like they are getting started and they don't know how. And I think the point to take away from it is, um, you have to be willing to put in the work for it and practice a lot. Um, so just like me, you don't necessarily need an education or a degree. What you need is the willingness to actually give it, like, try things out, tackle some projects, do some work for free. Contributing to open source is another good way. You'll hear a lot of other streamers and content creators say the same thing, and it can those things are stepping stones. Uh, Sometimes what gets you farther than anything is your willingness and determination, not necessarily your education, not even necessarily who you know. Um, so if you're willing and you have an actual interest in it, in like technology in general, but programming in particular, and you're trying to figure out how to get into it, I think the lesson that I can provide from my story is, it doesn't matter your background or um, whether you've had the silver spoon or not. Doesn't matter how poor you are or not. If you have the discipline and dedication, you can do it. It just takes a lot of effort. And then even after I started, getting paid for the work that I was doing, after the first few years, it still took me several years um, to make a decent living at it. I spent many years going to bed hungry, not knowing where my rent check was going to come from, just generally having to scratch, my way through uh, small bits of work to get by in order to get to the point where I had built enough experience that people could take me seriously for my work and pay me accordingly. I would add one other thing. You also have to take yourself seriously. Um, you need to have a realistic expectation of what you're capable of doing and whether you're working towards that goal or not. So, knowing that you can is good, but you also have to be willing to understand your own strengths and weaknesses and figure out where you need to apply yourself to, and what things can you lean on or work more on. Um, and these things are easier to do when you're young. So if you're in your early 20s or something, sort that stuff out now. It'll pay for itself in the future. But hopefully, the entire point here that I'm trying to get across and I hope gets across is that there isn't just one path into this world. If you actually do care about programming, you really like it, you really do have a passion, you love technology, you like all this stuff, you can get into it with in non-traditional ways. Let's say that, and it can work. It can work great for you. Not always, um, but you shouldn't just assume that because you're not doing the things that most other people are doing, um, you're not going to succeed. Don't stop trying. If you really care, keep going for it. That's the best advice I can give about, based on my origin story. So hopefully that helps. Um, yeah. So aside from that, um, I thought what I would do is do a quick little test since I'm talking about technology. Um, there's a particular article that I wanted to go over because I thought it would be an interesting dive. Okay, so let's see if I can do this right. If I go grab this guy. Okay. Squish myself. You don't need to see me so much. All right. So now that I've got my origin story out of the way, which I hope is somewhat helpful and useful, this particular article jumped out at me. So I thought I would do that. One of the Here, maybe I'll just take a second here and put myself back. Okay. I might just use this as an opportunity to do like a little intro on myself and what kind of stuff I want to do. So, generally speaking, I'm gonna jump around from like one thing to another. It just kind of depends on my interests, but I'm gonna be trying to tackle content that reviews articles or other videos. I'm going to be doing some programming. I'm building my own video game in Zig using WebAssembly and then DOM, like just regular DOM on the front end, like CSS, HTML DOM, because it's crazy and I want to try it because I'm crazy. Um, we'll see how far I get with it. It'll be an interesting project. So I already have it started, so I'm going to be doing that a bit. Um, I'm going to jump into Go Blueprint, which, if you don't know, is a, uh, a a templating stack basically for Golang. It's Melky is the one who's spearheading that, and I'm gonna try and help by contributing, particularly with the HTMX stuff, because HTMX is, in my opinion, the framework that people should be using over almost any other framework by default. And I am the lead CEO of HTMX. If you know me anywhere from Twitter, um, you know I'm the lead CEO. There are many other co-CEOs. You know what? I'm gonna prove it. Okay, look. Not this one. Here. I wonder if the site's still up. Yeah, there it is. Look at that. So okay, so I'm here, right? Look at me. Yeah, that's me. And like there's other people like whatever, um, Trav and Turk and Nate, and they're just co-CEOs. I'm the lead CEO of HTMX. Okay, so just so you just I want that to be clear. Anyway, so yeah, those are going to be the kinds of things that I'm going to be doing. So to that end, I was thinking I would review this article about web components because it kind of ties into HTMX. The whole point behind HTMX is simplification, where, well, that's one of the points. Let me put it that way. Um, it's a simpler framework that does not have a lot of baggage with it. If you compare it to something like React or Angular or Vue or any of the other go-to frameworks that people tend to use for front-end work, HTMX can get you a lot of the way there with a lot less baggage. You just have to change your mindset as to how front end works when you're working with HTMX. That kind of leans into my programming philosophy, which is use stuff that's simple, and doesn't require a lot of overhead, if any. My favorite build processes are no build processes. If you can get a no build process, and you can satisfy any business needs that you need to meet, whether it's on a personal project or otherwise, to me that's chef's kiss. So to that end, I think web components kind of lean in that direction because web components are um, baked into browsers, and they have um, general availability across most browser platforms. So if you're going to use a web component, you're kind of close to the metal, so to speak. So I just wanted to see what this article was like and what it had to offer. So let's get into it. Um, okay, November 27th. So actually, this was from yesterday. Seen a lot of great posts about web components lately. Many have focused on the HTML web component pattern, which eschews Shadow DOM in favor of progressively enhancing existing markup. There's also been discussion, including this post by yours truly. Oh, I remember this one. Web components will outlive your JavaScript framework. I think Primogen did a review on this. I could be wrong. About fully replacing JavaScript frameworks with web components. Those aren't the only options, though. You can use web components in tandem with JavaScript frameworks. So to that end, I want to talk about a key benefit that I haven't mentioned. Web components can dramatically loosen the coupling of JavaScript frameworks. I already generally agree with this. To prove it, we're going to do something kind of crazy. I like it. Build an app where every single component is written with a different framework. That's almost too crazy. You have to be a particular kind of crazy to do this. It probably goes without saying you should not build a real app like this. Yeah, of course. But there are valid reasons for mixing frameworks. Maybe you're gradually migrating from React to Vue. Maybe your app is built with Solid, but you want to use a third-party library that only exists as an Angular component. Maybe you want to use Svelte for a few islands of interactivity in an otherwise static website. Okay, that's pretty good. I think this kind of thinking is right tool for the job kind of thinking, which I agree with. And sometimes you have to mix and match the tools that you're using. So instead of just leaning to, well, I'm just going to do, we're going to do everything in React, for example. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's on the front end, it's React. Sometimes you do want to mix different tools so that you can get the best, the best output for what it is you're after. So it's actually not as crazy as it sounds. So here's what we're going to create. Simple little to-do app based loosely on to-do MVC, which apparently Backbone, Ember, Angular. Is Backbone still around? Is Ember still around? Anyways, okay. So there's a to-do. I think this is an actual functional demo. Yeah. You can all right, okay. As we build it, we'll see how web components can encapsulate JavaScript frameworks, allowing us to use them without imposing broader constraints on the rest of the application. Okay. What's a web component? In case you're not familiar, here's a primer on how they work. We declare a subclass of HTML element in JavaScript. Let's call it my component. And yes, this is pretty typical. You have to use your shadow DOM, which is open, but you can close it for particular reasons. And then your inner HTML with some styling. Okay. That call to attach shadow in the constructor makes our component use the shadow DOM, which encapsulates the markup and styles inside our component from the rest of the page. Connected callback is called when the web component is actually connected to the DOM tree, rendering the HTML contents into the component's shadow root. So you can kind of think of the connected callback as like an event, almost like when this component is triggered and activated in your HTML, connected callback is like an event that you can listen to that says, yeah, I'm here. And then what you're doing is you can think of the shadow DOM, in case you don't know what it is, you can think of the shadow DOM as like an external black box that does not have an impact on the rendering of the page until the element becomes active. This foreshadows how we'll make our frameworks work with web components. We normally attach frameworks to a DOM element and let the framework take over all descendants of that element. So if you've seen a React app, you're going to have a parent element and you're going to say, React begin to do X, whatever it is you're set to do on this element. And then React just controls that element. With web components, we can attach the framework to the shadow root, which ensures that it can only access the component's shadow tree. Next, we define a custom element for my component class. So this will end up being, yes, exactly. Whenever a tag with that custom element name appears on the page, the corresponding DOM node is actually an instance of my component. So, right, this is exactly how you create a custom tag. So it's like any other HTML tag. And the point is, here, I didn't even make myself smaller. The point is that you're going to, this tag is going to instantiate a class of whatever your web component is. So if you remember the connected callback up here, calling this in your HTML DOM tree is going to trigger this connected callback. Okay, so yeah, I think this is actually, yep, there it is. So you can actually see like he put it on this, like on this page, which is great. You can see my component and you can see the shadow root, which is the shadow DOM, and you can see the inner HTML along with the style, and it's all here encapsulated in this guy. Okay, scaffolding layout. The entry point of our app will be a React component. Here's our humble start. So let me make sure. I'm gonna squeeze my head more. Okay. There. Okay, here. So we've got a to-do app, JSX file. Okay. We could start adding elements here to block out the basic DOM structure, but I want to write another component for that to show how we can nest web components in the same way we nest framework components. Most frameworks support composition via nesting like normal HTML elements. From the outside, it usually looks like this. On the inside, there are a few ways that frameworks handle this. For example, React and Solid give you access to those children as a special children prop. Right. So you can, if you're paying attention to how this was done, okay, and how the custom tag was done, you can actually kind of already tell how you're going to mix this in with React. You can already see it. But let's keep going. With web components that use Shadow DOM, we can do the same thing using the slot element. When the browser encounters a slot, it replaces it with the children of the web component. Slot is actually more powerful than React or Solid's children. If we give each slot a name attribute, a web component can have multiple slots, and we can determine where each nested element goes by giving it a slot attribute matching the slot's name. Okay, let's see what this looks like in practice. Here it is using Solid. So you've got a layout, wrapper, header, title, filters, to-dos, input. Here's your layout. Element, so that's going to be your tag. And then here you go. It's going to render to-do layout, which is really just this guy. There are two parts to a solid web component, the web component wrapper at the top and the actual solid component at the bottom. The most important thing to notice about the solid component is that we're using named slots instead of the children prop. Whereas children is handled by solid and would only let us nest other solid components, slots are handled by the browser itself and will let us nest any HTML element, including web components written with other frameworks. So you can see the slots here, to-dos, input. Right? So naming these slots gives you a way to choose where to inject other elements that you might be borrowing from, other frameworks or whatever. Where were we here? The web component wrapper is pretty similar to the example above. It creates a shadow root in the constructor and then renders the solid component into the connected callback method. Note that this is not a complete implementation of the web component wrapper. There is a lot more to web components, yes. At the very least, we'd probably want to define an attribute changed callback method so we can re-render the solid component when the attribute changes. If you're using this in production, you should probably use a package Solid provides called Solid Element that handles all this for you. Okay, now here's what I don't like about this tutorial. It's kind of jumped. So we started out talking about like web components and using Solid and React, and it kept things simple. But I think now it's kind of jumped into assuming that you have an understanding of these frameworks. And if you don't, this might be hard to follow. So I get why, because the point is to show that you can mix and match these things and how it works together. But there's a jump here that's not being filled in. There's a gap that's not being filled in. In any case, the point of the attribute change callback is so that you can add custom attributes to these web components, like say this guy, and when an attribute changes, you're going to do something about it. So an attribute would be something like the style tag or the class tag, or other kinds of, like here, this aside, the ID, the class, the style, those are attributes. So if you're going to make a change to one of these attributes, what you're saying down here is that you're going to want to re-render. Say, you want to render the new value of the attribute. So that's the point of it. So now in the React app, we can use our to-do layout component. So here it is. So your to-do app is wrapped, and then you're going to call in the custom component that web component you've created, and then note the slot, right? So this is where the slot comes in. So what's going to happen is this guy should end up in here. That's what should happen if it's done right. So note that we don't need to import anything from to-do layout JSX. We just use the custom element tag that we've defined. Okay, now here's the question. Can we see exactly how, okay. So the to-do demo is a tag. The to-do layout is also a tag. And there it is. Okay, perfect. And you know what's nice about the Chrome Inspector tools that they've made some updates. So like you can go through the shadow tree and you can actually like pick out the slot here and what's being put in it, which is cool. That's great. It even tells you the slot. Like it tells you that this is a slot filler. Very cool. Okay, so you get the point. If there was anything in filters, it'd be in there, whatever. But yeah, this guy is showing up here like this. That's a React component rendering a solid component, which takes a nested React element as a child. So in this whole example, the whole point was that solid kind of takes the place of a web component that you might write by hand. And see, it's solid element, web components wrapper for solid. So it's a way to write web components using the solid framework. You can do this all by hand too. Like web components are available. So adding to-dos. For the to-do input, we'll peel the onion back a bit further and write it with no framework at all. Okay, isn't that what I was just talking about? I think it was. To-do input. So you're going to define your input tag, yes, and here's your element. It's going to have a form. It's going to have a text input. And then you're going to add an event listener to the form. And it's going to be the submit. And you're going to take the form data and you're going to ship off an event. And you're going to pass the value. It looks like you're going to pass the value of the input as part of the event details. And then you're going to reset the form. I'm pretty sure. Between this, the example web component, and our solid layout, you're probably noticing a pattern. Attach a shadow root, render some HTML. Whether we handwrite the HTML or use a framework, the process is roughly the same. True. Here we're using a custom event to communicate with the parent component. That's the dispatch event, which is just new custom event. When the form is submitted, we dispatch an add event with the input text. So that's naming it. So you can go, now you could go like, if you grab the element, the to-do input, then you could go add event listener, add, and then you'd get the detail. The detail would come into you as an object. Event queues are often used to decouple communication between components of a software system. Browsers lean heavily on events, and custom events in particular are an important tool in the web component toolbox, especially because the custom element acts as a natural event bus that can be accessed from outside the web component. Before we can continue adding components, we need to figure out how to handle our state. For now, we'll just keep it in our React to-do app component. Although we'll eventually outgrow useState, it's a perfect place to start. Each to-do will have three properties: ID, text, string describing it, and a done indicating whether it's been completed. Okay. Use callback, use state from React. Okay, so now we're back in React land. Hang on one sec. Okay. So here's an ID, our to-do app. Okay, we're going to use state for our tracking our to-dos. We've added one. It's going to get a new ID, which is just auto-incremented. It's going to get a text for like what it is, title, and then whether it's done or not. Okay. We're going to listen to add. So here's our, yeah, perfect. Exactly what I was saying. Add event listener add is really just this right here. And then our layout, our return JSX, is the web component layout with the title, the to-do title in the slot, and then our web component input. We'll keep an array of our to-dos in React state. When we add a to-do, we'll add it to the array. The one awkward part is that the input is the input ref function. Hang on. The one awkward part of this is that input ref function. Okay. Our to-do input emits a custom add event when the form is submitted. Yeah. Usually with React, we'd attach event listeners using props like onClick, but that only works for events that React already knows about. We need to listen for add events directly. So that's why you have the input ref. Okay, because you're going to listen to that guy. In React land, we use refs to directly interact with the DOM. We most commonly use them with the use ref hook, but that's not the only way. The ref prop is actually just a function that gets called with the DOM node. Rather than passing a ref returned from the use ref hook to that prop, we can instead pass a function that attaches the event listener to the DOM node directly. You might be wondering why we have to wrap the function and use callback. The answer lies in the legacy React docs on refs, and as far as I can tell, has not been brought over to the new docs. If the ref callback is defined as an inline function, it will get called twice during updates, first with null and then again with the DOM element. This is because a new instance of the function is created with each render. So React needs to clear the old ref and set up the new one. You can avoid this by defining the ref callback as a bound method on the class, but note that it shouldn't matter in most cases. This is one of the problems I have with React, among many. You need to know a lot of these things under the hood. And if you don't, you can easily get caught in an awkward situation where, like this is rendering twice and you don't know why. And it's not in the new docs, but it is in the old docs. Anyways, in this case, it does matter since we don't want to attach the event listener again on every render, because that would be, at the very least, it would be memory consuming. There's no guarantee the garbage collector would remove the event listener. So we wrap it in use callback to ensure that we pass the same instance of the function every time. So again, yeah, so this is like a live demo. Now I'm not sure if it's just incomplete here and that's why my entries are not showing up, but you can see a lot of what is being talked about. Like here's your input, right? And it's a form. And there's your input form field. Okay, to-do items. So far we can add to-dos, but not see them. Ha, there we go. The next step is writing a component to show each to-do item. We'll write that component with Svelte. Svelte supports custom elements out of the box. Rather than continuing to show the same web component wrapper boilerplate every time, we'll just use that feature. Custom elements for Svelte. Okay, so the code. So we've got a custom element we're going to call to-do item. So it's going to be the individual item we're adding. The attributes, ID, text, and done. An event dispatcher, which includes check. So guess what that's going to be for? A checkbox. And there it is. And so then you bind the checked event listener. You have a label. You have some area. On click, dispatch, delete. Okay, so there's another one. So we've got another event for delete. So you've got check, you've got delete, and then you've got an icon. Okay, so with Svelte, the script tag isn't literally rendered to the DOM. Instead, that code runs when the component is instantiated. The script tag isn't literally rendered. I see. Okay. Yeah. So this does not go into the DOM. Our Svelte component takes 3 props, ID, text, and done. It also creates a custom event dispatcher, which can dispatch events on the custom element. The $2 dots syntax declares a reactive block. It means that whenever the value of ID or done changes, it will dispatch a check event with the new values. ID probably won't change. So what this means in practice is that it'll dispatch a check event whenever we check or uncheck the to-do, okay? Back in our React component, we loop over our to-dos and use our new to-do item component. We also need a couple more utility functions to remove and check to-dos and another ref callback to attach the event listeners to each to-do item. So I guess now we're going to try and marry what's been done with, hopefully that wasn't too loud, I just tapped the mic. We're going to try and marry what's been done with Svelte here and web components with React. So we've seen a lot of the code. We have an add to do, we have a remove to do. So that's just going to remove it based on ID. We have a check to do, which is going to trigger its done state. Yeah. So we're just using a map and we just iterate over it till we find the ID and set its done state. The add event is still there. So we're doing the same thing here with React, another callback, use callback so that we don't do this every time it's rendered. And we have a check and then a delete. And you can see that the details are passed along with it. And then what happens is as you build your to-dos array in your in this state, in the React state, you're going to iterate over them and you're going to render out a to-do item web component done in Svelte. React Svelte. Now the list actually shows all our to-dos. And when we add a new to-do, it shows up on the list. Yep. Yep. Okay, filtering tools. The last feature to add is the ability to filter to-dos. Before we can add that though, we need a bit of refactoring. I want to show another way that web components can communicate with each other using a shared store. Many of the frameworks we're using have their own store implementations, but we need a store that we can use with all of them. For that reason, we'll use a library called nano stores. First, we'll make a new file called store.js with our to-do state rewritten using nano stores. So you've got a storage thing here, and you're going to go through all your to-dos. You're going to see which ones are done, which ones are left. You're going to have an add, a check, and a remove. And then you're going to filter, which I presume is going to get flushed out here. Core logic is the same. Most of the changes are porting from use state to nano. We did add 2 new computed stores, done and left, which are derived from to-dos and return completed and incomplete, respectively. We also have filter, which will hold the current filter value. I see. Okay. So now we go with view. All right. Bring in your nano store, bring in your store, initialize them, and then you're going to, right, with view you have to ship a template. I think that's pretty standard. And then you're going to demonstrate what the number of items in the store. Syntax pretty similar to Svelte. The script is run when the component is instantiated and the template tag contains the markup. Vue doesn't make compiling a component to a custom element quite as simple as Svelte does. We need to create another file, import the Vue component, and call define custom element. We need to create another file, import the component, import from Vue, to-do filters, and then we define, I see, okay. Right. So you're importing it, and then you're defining your custom element as to-do filters. Back in React land, we'll refactor our component to use nano stores rather than use state and bring in the to-do filters component. So there we go. We're pulling in the store. We're grabbing the store individual items. We're initializing them. We're determining which ones are visible and not. That's what the ones that are visible and the ones that aren't. And then we iterate over them and show them. And here we have our to do filters slot. So that's going to go in the remaining slot that we go if we go all the way back up here. Right here under title, right? So it's going to end up there. We did it. Now we have a fully functional to-do app written with 4 different frameworks: React, Solid, Svelte, and Vue, plus a component written in vanilla JavaScript. And then if I go like this, if I trigger something to be done, and yeah, there we go. And those, and you can see now how those 3 stores, the done, to-dos, done, left, are just filters, right? They're just filters. Moving forward. The point of this article is not to convince you that this is a good way to write web apps. It's to show that there are ways to build a web app other than writing the entire thing with a single JavaScript framework. And furthermore, web components make it significantly easier to do that. You can progressively enhance static HTML. You can build rich interactive JavaScript islands that naturally communicate with hypermedia libraries like HTMX, which I am the lead CEO of. So I definitely did not pay this person for this article. Yeah. And I definitely didn't pay a lot of money for this article as CEO of HTMX. You can even wrap a web component around a framework component and use it with any other framework. Web components drastically loosen the coupling of JavaScript frameworks by providing a common interface that all frameworks can use. From a consumer's point of view, web components are just HTML tags. Doesn't matter what goes on under the hood. And then there's a sandbox and a reading list. Okay, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. So I agree with a lot of this. I do wish that there was maybe just a little bit more time spent on bridging the gap between the different frameworks. But I kind of also get it. Like, you can go look it up yourself. I just feel like maybe just a little bit more information about how and why. Like that part right here with React and why he had to do the use callback function the way he did in order to attach an event listener. That's really good. That's a good way to like help bridge the information gap on the frameworks. So if you're going to go into a tutorial like this and you're going to say, I'm going to go crazy and use a bunch of frameworks, which I think is great, maybe just a little bit more information for the readers on the how and why. But honestly, not not terrible. It's just kind of a jump that you have to get through in your head. The rest of it was great. I like that he called out HTMX. I like that he said a lot of the things that I was saying at the beginning. I did not pre-read this. And I agree, generally speaking, I agree with this. We tend to reach out for frameworks as some kind of multi-solution thing. And by default, we don't consider the other options. You can see taking like half an hour to an hour just to kind of like scope out different options might give you some advantages and open some doors that you wouldn't have otherwise considered if you had just gone with React to begin with. I think, just my opinion, I think web components and libraries like HTMX are going to show through proof that some of the frameworks that have led to the insanity that is front-end web development these days, and I do think it's insanity, they're going to show through their use and prove themselves to be worthy of default consideration. Frameworks like React or Svelte or Vue, etc., have their place, but I think they become default too often. And there are plenty of other options. Some of them are a lot better. So this is good stuff. I hope articles and libraries like HTMX and HTMX get more uh, shout outs because it's good stuff. Okay. Up next, I think this is going to be the last thing I do. I'm going to update my titles. Let's see. There's a video review I want to go through. And where is it? Okay, yeah, here it is. So I'm going to update my title. It's going to be all right. Let's see. Let's see. So, if you've seen me on X, I am kind of chummy with Theo and Primogen and Tej and oh, there we go. And you know, some of the big streamers, Melky too, and it's been fun to talk to them behind the scenes. It's been fun to help a few of them out on different things. And so I thought it'd be fun to just kind of poke a little fun at Theo and Mr. Primogen here, and kind of round out the night with a little bit of a fun react, and more react. Now, the question is, can I do this without blowing everyone's speakers out? Let me try. Okay, let's see.
Actions lately.
Even for me, that's too loud. Let's see what the volume is.
As
like.
the main React.
Hopefully it's not too loud. We'll see. I'm going to give it a shot. The levels look all right.
Dev on YouTube, feel like it's my job to come in and add some React to the equation. So without further ado, this is Theo React.
You know what? I'm gonna add some of my React to your equation, Theo. What do you think of that?
To prime Reacts to Professor Reacts to prime Reacts to FP. Yeah, let's do it. So apparently,
hang on. No, hang on. Do that again.
Prime Reacts to Professor Reacts to prime Reacts to FP.
Spiro reacts to Theo reacts to Prime reacts to Professor reacting to Prime reacting to FP. There's my intro. I should look at the Spiro reacts to Theo reacts to Prime reacts to Professor reacting to Prime reacting to FP. Maybe I should memorize. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, let's do it.
So apparently there is a professor that reacted to me, reacting to Dave Farley about functional programming is not better than OOP. I'm a little nervous because, one, I hate hearing myself talk. I think all people don't really like hearing themselves talk back.
Speak for yourself.
Because
Theo being cheeky right off the bat, huh?
And B, I also don't plan anything I'm going to say. I just kind of free.
Understandable.
Form, okay?
Prime wouldn't be the same if you planned anything he said.
Kind of ejaculate words out of my mouth. And so
Wasn't he just complaining about how he's been getting demonetized? Like, I don't know. Has it been 30 seconds since my video started? Because you can't say ejaculate in the first 30 seconds. Editor's note, censor both him and me saying it if it's before the first 30. You can't say those things this early, Prime. That's the one.
Now I'm going to have... This is now deep-gated censorship, thanks to Prime. You know what, Prime? You're just censoring everyone.
One rule. Like, they even say this now explicitly. Nothing even vaguely sexual or curse wordy or anything a brand would be upset with in the first 30 seconds. Only rule. Anyways.
like just like that phrase. That phrase was not necessarily a planned phrase, but it still came out the face hole. And so here we are, reacting to a reaction of a reaction, okay?
I tell my wife every time I teach this particular lecture, like, this is such a snooze fest. So I've decided this time...
Average Dr. Disrespect enjoyer. You can just tell right away this man is an average Dr. Disrespect enjoyer right there. Just hitting them with the snooze fest. You know for a fact this guy is out there just being like, you know, my students just flapping their gums all day. Dude, it's so good.
Especially because we're trying to squeeze it in a little bit. Let's only talk about the stuff that matters, and let's try and make it a bit more fun. So this was...
That's hard to do. Only talk about the stuff that matters and make it fun?
what the outline looked like as of October.
Am I being tricked into talking about OOP again? I'm going to be really upset. I mean, I know it's an FP thing, but I haven't seen anything functional yet. This is all OO shit. I'm not happy.
We're
I'm happy.
22nd, or, you know, a few days ago. This is what it's going to be today.
I am really deeply feeling uncomfortable right now. I really don't want to know what stupid opinion I had. And I can't believe, dude, I can't believe I sound like a cartoon
We're going
character.
to start
I am already lost. This is going to be fun.
by watching Primogen, who is...
Set the name right. Set.
Wait, did they watch a Prime video in class? Am I understanding this correctly? Is Prime's content being brought into the classroom as part of a lecture?
It doesn't matter, Theo. All Primogen heard was his own name. That's all he needed. That's it. Like then he just tuned out, and the rest was just, once he got the ego boost, who cares whether they watched it in class or not? He heard his name. That's all Primogen needs.
On one hand, based. On the other hand, the kids are so fucked.
The day, the name right. Let's go. Random B tier blog. Let's go, dude. The guy, he likes it. Prototype-based language, JavaScript. Get the hell out of here.
somebody that I just found, like one of my friends showed me him a little bit ago. We're going to still focus heavily on the core concepts of OO, because that's something that actually matters. You guys think that you know what OO is. You don't even know what the concepts are.
Oh no, I think I know what he's gonna quote me on. I think I know what's about to happen here.
I have no idea what's about to happen because I haven't
I have no idea either, but the fact that Primogen knows makes this good.
seen any of the original content. This is the first time I've consumed any of this chain.
But you've written a lot of OO, so it's going to be familiar.
Deeply uncomfortable.
Then we're going to look at this kind of bad blog, but it shows an interesting point. We're going to skip prototype-based stuff entirely, talk a little bit about this language called small talk.
Small talk. The funny part is that every time I hear someone talk about small talk, it's almost universally pretty positive, which is strange because it seems like small talk would be awful, but I've heard so many positive things about it, which is, I'm just having a hard time believing that. Small talk is a true OOP, apparently. It is the...
So I've talked about this a little bit. I need a good term for this, like a theoism for this particular phenomena, where like...
Okay, so we just went over Primogen's ego boost. Did Theo just like refer to himself somehow as like using a theoism? Anyway,
The reason React, the frameworks, also adding more React in, can't help myself. The reason the React framework has so much less satisfaction per average user than a lot of these newer frameworks isn't just because Svelte is 10 times better than React, so it's 10 times more likely you'll enjoy it. It's because the average person working with React didn't pick it. It's just what was being used already. Whereas the average person using Svelte, they picked it. They already are biased towards it. That's why they're using it. When you are talking about smaller things that are part of like a niche community, the people who use it are biased towards it. That's why they're in that community. So the reason we don't hear bad things about Smalltalk is because everyone using it likes it. Whereas we hear bad things about React every day because the average user isn't using it because they liked it. They're using it because it's what you use. So yeah, I need a term for this. I don't have one, but that's what I'm expecting is happening here.
The only true
okay, but there's. I better not knock the mic. I generally agree, but there's also another problem with this. At one point or another, people used React. People used React because they liked React. Like, React had to start somewhere. It didn't become a monolithic thing as a de facto standard overnight, right? So it was created and then attempted to solve certain problems, and people chose it. I mean, the only thing that I can recall vividly is the virtual DOM in React, and it solved the problem of state management, backend versus front end, and whatnot. So I don't think it's as simple to say other frameworks are being chosen. React is kind of being forced upon as a standard, and so you're going to get, lesser satisfaction. The approach to problem solving, whatever problem you're trying to solve, is what I think matters. So React has a particular way of solving problems around rendering, virtual DOM, things like that, that is different from other frameworks. And it's that approach that I think has over time become, maybe has outgrown itself perhaps. I'm not entirely sure exactly, but I don't think it's just ability to choose versus non-ability to choose. I do think that React is choosing to solve problems in a particular way that cause dissatisfaction, regardless of even if you had other choices or not, it wouldn't matter. Comparatively, if you could choose between React and several other frameworks, you might still choose another framework, not because you know it better or because you like it better because you're using it more, but because you prefer the approach to the problems you're trying to solve. I'm saying it way too often. Let's just keep going. I hope I've made a point.
Scotsman, how's the weather? Driven development, Smalltalk. Yeah, because nobody is actually using it anymore. Okay, I mean, that's fair. Fair. If you want modern Smalltalk, you can try Pharaoh. I don't want modern Smalltalk. Okay, it's like Latin. Everyone knows that it exists, but no one actually speaks it out loud.
You've probably never heard of, but is extremely influential. So, with that said, welcome to Professor Reacts to Primogen Reacts to Functional Programming is not better than OOP.
Nope. It's missing two. It's Theo reacts to Primogen reacts to Professor reacts to Primogen reacts to functional programming is not better than OOP. Just wanted to set the record straight here.
Please.
No. As lead CEO of HTMX, Spiro reacts to Theo reacts to Prime reacts to Professor reacting to Prime reacting to FP. Tej, I better not see you do. You stay out of this, Tej. I'm watching you. Yeah, you too, Melky.
Like and subscribe.
Agreed. Like and subscribe. Buttons are right there. Just hit him, guys. Come on.
Like and subscribe.
One of my most
Yes.
How many YouTube bars are visible right now? We got mine. We got the one for the video he's watching. We got the one in the presentation and 3 titles as well. We're killing it here, guys. This is great. Dark Viper is going to have a fucking aneurysm if we're not careful.
Let's go. Man, this professor's pretty good. This professor's pretty good because I never remember to say like and subscribe, and he's out here just doing the Lord's work for me. All right, this might be a little bit low.
Oh, there's one more YouTube bar here too. We're so deep, boys. We're so deep.
So I'm not exactly sure. I may
We just got deeper.
have to like bump up the volume, okay? And then it might get really loud when the professor talks. Just an ear warning, okay? Ear warning.
Like and subscribe.
One of my most successful videos on this channel so far compares functional
I have to turn him up a bit now too. God damn it.
and object-oriented programming. This is an interesting topic, and clearly not just to me. But there's more to this debate than we discussed in that episode. This is one of those debates that, to be honest, seems a little weird to me.
I think I could have agreed with this take not too long ago. Real talk, I really do think I would be on the
Yeah, so we're currently talking about the debate between functional versus OO. Which one is better?
Functional is better. This isn't even an argument. I have
Oh, is better. This isn't even an argument. Can your functional inherit?
multiple videos about this already, but looks like we're making another.
Primogen is a Netflix senior engineer. He's got
Works at Netflix, by the way.
like 2 decades of
Allegedly.
experience writing code.
All
He's also
technically
like
true.
a Twitch streamer that, is kind of funny. So,
Okay,
we're-
Like, he's a lot funnier in person. Not that I would know. I've heard stories.
hey,
Be careful. He doesn't deserve too much credit. He's funny for a programmer, but funny is a high bar. Funny is a really high bar.
we got
Okay, so he's not a comedian funny, all right? But because you can see his ego right now. I can't even point correctly at him. Anyways, you can see the ego. If I could chart Primogen's ego level right now, the chart would just be solid full. Like if there would just be, it would just be like a never-ending chart full of ego. First he claps himself on just his name being said in class, and now he thinks he's God's gift to comedy. And I don't know, I think these react videos are kind of feeding into it.
kind of funny. We got kind of funny, okay? I think I could put that on the
But you can hear in his voice right now. He's like, "We got kind of funny." And what he really means is, "I'm freaking hilarious, boys."
shelf. I feel like that is going to work out. Oh man, in fact that's turning into a tweet right there.
Do you see? You see the ego? He can't even just keep it to himself in the video. No. He's got to tweet it out.
And boom.
I guess I have to go make a tweet as well now. That's how this works, right?
Now I have to go make a tweet too.
There's my tweet. I'm following all the steps. Hope I get all my good streamer points after this one.
Alex,
Okay, let's go. Let me do. Hang on. It's my first time streaming. Cut me some slack. Okay, let's go here, and the post will be. What? Don't here. All right, there we go. Let's keep going.
accept it. I'm going to accept it. I'm accepting kind of funny. Not like fully funny, not like Zach Galifianakis funny, but we're getting places, okay? We're getting places. A 3 out of 5 funny. Yeah, a solid 3 out of 5 funny.
Okay, he's humbling himself down a little. Okay, I'll take it.
Some professor while shrugging. While shrugging.
We're gonna watch just a little bit of this.
Strange debate kind of talk. Maybe if you would have asked me 5 years ago, 7 years ago, hey, Prime, what do you think on the functional versus non-functional debate? I'd probably have some stupid-ass take, right? This was probably during the height, maybe if you went 8 years ago, my height of loving RxJS, and I'd have been like, reactive functional programming is so great, right? But I really don't even know what functional programming is at that point. Still don't even really know what it is. I'm just going to be straight up here.
Does anybody really know what functional programming is? You know, that,
Motherfucker, don't try me.
Procedural programming is greater than everything else.
what is procedural programming?
All I know about procedural programming is that it's based. I know a bit, but it's one of those things that's hard to properly define, and I'm excited to see how 4 layers of other devs try to before I embarrass myself.
Let's go.
I also just realized he has this paused on a D's nuts joke in front of a classroom. Maybe Gen Z will be all right.
anybody really know what functional programming? I mean, Pick does. Pick knows, but I don't know. Okay. I don't really know. Okay, I'm not a Haskeller. Okay, even my only base experience, my baseline experience in functional programming is my brief little foray, my little dip in my hot dog into OCaml, and that was not like. It's not like OCaml's considered real functional programming to the Haskellers. Haskellers look down on OCaml. They're like, oh, OCaml, that's not even real, right? And so it's just like,
OCaml's not real. It's just a made-up language. You see them all on X, but have you ever seen OCaml code in production? That's what I thought.
OCaml, my camel feels real, but apparently it's not really real. Tej surely knows functional by now. No, he doesn't. He only knows OCaml. TJ isn't a real functional programmer yet.
I've talked to TJ. It's questionable at best, okay? He's never actually shown me any OCaml code. Have you ever seen any OCaml code from Tej? Not excluding his stream? Let's just keep going.
Okay? It has a while loop in it. It's fake functional programming. It is fake functional programming.
That is the key sign of fake programming. If you use a while loop, what are you even doing?
While loops are on the line, that's fair. For loops, you're over. That's you're back in OOP. But a while loop, a condition can. I could.
No, Theo. No. Do you hear what's going on now? Now Theo is coping. You're hearing Theo cope. How's that for Theoism, Theo? Theo cope.
Be convinced either way. I also can't help but notice this is such a small thing, and you can't see it when I have the video unpaused. You can a little bit. His playback bar rotates from over to under his microphone. There's some weird shit going on with the chroma keying, and I can't unsee it now.
Why is Theo so obsessed with these bars? What's going on, Theo? Are you okay, buddy?
Okay.
Is it like scripting pretty much? No, it's different than that. You guys have all written procedural code.
I love
C is procedural. It means you use a function.
Yes.
A procedure is called a function.
I love it.
If you wrote functions, you've done procedural code. He's using it in a slightly different sense, in that everyone talks about Rust being procedural. They just say that because they want to pretend it's like C.
This is so good.
Yep.
I love this professor so much.
Anyway.
Oh my goodness, that is such a good take. They just want to pretend Rust is like C. They just wish Rust actually was based, but
Pre-watched. Clearly, Prime watched me reacting to him ahead of time. There's another reaction layer here. That's the only reason he thought that was funny.
it's not based, okay?
How do you explain me?
It's never been based. It just always wished it could be, but they can't. You know, and should we ever be surprised that an authoritarian language has people that are running it that are authoritarian? No, we shouldn't. We should not be surprised.
That's my take on React. Authoritarian language. All the big virtual DOM TM. You know, big crustacean TM.
Great.
My stance is not that I hate functional programming and love OO, or vice versa, but rather that I think of each of these approaches as tools, rather than things to go to war about.
So I'm not even. So this whole idea of saying
So it's not a proper React video if I don't get one guide by chat, right? Let me go on my one guy quick. Do you ever code on stream, or do you just react to videos? Genuine question. I think the one thing I do less than code on stream is react to videos. I've done this a total of maybe 4 times in the history of my channel. I am the furthest.
Do you guys notice something? Okay, so first of all, I have no one. I have no chat. I'm doing this on. I went out. I put an X post up. You know, I told people, I'm like, hey, I've got like stuff to say. Maybe you'll like learn something. We can have like a fun little thing. I do okay on X when I like post. Like, you know, I get likes and stuff from like pretty popular streamers. Like, you'll also note my name is on the top of this. That's my name on the top. That's right. I go around and I drop subs like nobody's business. Okay? And I have no viewers. Don't. Oh, my viewers are saying I don't do it. You have viewers.
This thing from a React content creator beyond the React framework. I react to content way less than Prime or any of the other creators that usually are the ones talking shit. I just thought it'd be funny to jump in on this meme. That all said, no, I don't code on stream that much because I don't like coding in front of people. I like coding to solve problems. And then I come back and talk about the cool things I did with code. I'll do like demos and examples and things live, but entertaining an audience when I'm trying to write real code, you're compromising on one, if not both, in that process. And the only reason I stream is to make good videos for YouTube. I'd rather use code externally on my own as a way to make better content. So
Theo just described why he doesn't code on stream. Because he can't. He has to sacrifice something to code and entertain the viewers. You know what I'm hearing? Skill issue. Wouldn't be a problem if you were doing OO, Theo.
there's my one guy moment. I need to make sure my chair is sitting here while the video plays at some point, and I need to order some delivery food and loudly eat while I'm watching. Once I have all of that covered, I will be a true React streamer for the first time.
But I think of each of these approaches as tools, rather than things to go to war about. So
I'm not even... So this whole idea of saying that a language paradigm is a tool is an interesting take to begin with, right?
I'm trying not to insult
And it's
him.
a wrong take. A paradigm...
There's nothing better than when you're trying to be the like somewhat polite content creator, especially when you're doing something like reaction content, where if you are too negative, you will be perceived as the aggressor, especially if you're reacting to somebody who could be seen as punching down. So I very much sympathize with Prime number one here, behind the Prime, and how he wanted to say what was just said in that video was outright wrong. But since he's borrowing their content to do such, it felt weird. And having someone else come in for you and be like, nah, he's wrong, it feels really good. It's like the biggest relief for someone else to say the thing you were not able to for any of many social dynamic reasons that start to happen in these situations.
Paradigm is a
I think Theo just coped for Primogen here. Which proves a theory that I've had ever since TwitchCon. You know that picture where Theo and Primogen are right next to each other at TwitchCon? Their mustache looks almost exactly the same. I actually think they're clones. So I think we're not just seeing Prime 1 and 2 here, but we've got Prime 3. So this actually should be renamed to Spiro reacts to Prime 3 reacts to Prime 2 reacts to Professor reacting to Prime 1 reacting to FP.
perspective.
Let's go.
Functional programming is not a tool.
that
It's a
excitement right
way
there.
to look at a problem.
Let's go.
Then the
That's such a good way to
language
say it.
itself is a tool that you can use to solve that problem.
Oh, I love that. That's actually a really good take, by the way. Base Professor dunking on Prime. This was perfect. I got dunked on, and I am completely okay with it. That is like the perfect way to say it, by the way, is that it is a paradigm. It's a way to look at a problem. It is not a tool. That was perfect. This was fantastic. Let's go.
Okay, so I haven't pre-watched this, but I think this kind of goes to what I was saying before with React versus other frameworks when Theo was talking about it, which is the approach to solving a problem, I think, is what matters more than your ability to choose between approaches. And I think that's why React has fallen out of favor in some circles, let's say. Definitely with me. I find its approach to solving problems creates more problems than it solves. Maybe not with some of the latest stuff that they're doing. I think they're making some pretty big changes, which might be good. But just historically, my historical use and my experience with others using it, it's the approach to the problem solving that I think is really the underlying issue. But it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to express that when you're deep in it.
Oh, retake it. I'm doing a quick retake. Retake, that's my opinion. That you know that meme where the guy hands an opinion to somebody else and then somebody else is holding it and then they're just like, that's my opinion. That's now my opinion. This is my opinion. That's mine. You're welcome, Professor.
You can keep that one, Prime. It's an okay opinion.
But the paradigm is a perspective.
I'll back up Prime on this one. It's not just an okay opinion. I think it's a pretty good opinion. And I'm also going to make it mine. Do you know why? Because I'm the lead CEO of HTMX.
Because is it a tool or is one objectively better than the other? Because they're both an equalizer, if you will. They both simply take...
I disagree with a lot of this. It's kind of nonsense.
Whoa! I don't think it's nonsense.
I like the framing. Oh God, that was loud.
They both can end with the same result, is what I was saying. Okay, I got wrecked. Wholesome man becomes wrecking me here. Okay, but I mean, what I was saying is they both can end in the exact same result. Both can produce the same end software, though Haskell has never actually delivered to production. I hear it can, and I hear it's the best software ever. He disagrees, so he fast forwards. Well, he has to. It's not like he can just sit there and do that. But is it actual? Like, what?
This is the difference between a teacher and a reactor. When a teacher runs into something that they don't agree with, they fast forward. When a reactor and a content creator stumbles on something they don't agree with, they rewind and play it back.
One problem I always see is that efficiency of tools is the largest indicator of whether or not your project is going to be successful. The first time that I wrote Harpoon, I wrote it terrible because I really didn't know NeoVim. The second time I'm writing Harpoon, I'm doing a lot better. And it's just simply a proficiency of tool problem. Now that I know my tool better, I can now use it and write better. And so if you are really adept at functional programming, you can program pretty much any problem using functional programming. And so is there any real, is there a difference in the end? It's always a skill issue. Life is literally a skill issue, just constantly happening.
I think we can...
Oh, hang on. Okay. Look, just because you know a tool really well doesn't mean that the tool is suited to solving the problem you're after. I've done this before. Actually, I've done this before with HTMX of all things. So I'm going to take an L here. If you know how to use a tool really well, it becomes easy to see how you might solve a problem using just that tool because you know it well. So kind of like you're building a bias towards it. It's a lot harder to step outside of that and go, am I solving this problem using the correct tool? Which is independent. It's independent of your ability to use that tool. Not entirely. Obviously, you have to have some how do you even answer that question without understanding other tools that you might want to consider? My point is that it's not all about knowing your tool better equals better answers. Sometimes, no matter how well you know the tool, it's not the right answer. And I would argue if you know your tool well enough, you know when you should be able to identify at least sometimes when you've hit that wall. When it starts to feel weird to implement the tool you know really well to solve a problem, then maybe it's time to consider whether that is the right tool.
Skip through actually a lot of this.
Versus oriented is like that something is leaning towards or going towards it. Anyways, I could agree with this take so far. Okay, me and this Dave guy
have changed. This is an interesting insight and certainly bears some relationship to how I usually design systems, even though, as I've said before, I think of my approach as more object-oriented than functional. Definitions of OO usually include abstraction, which allows us to hide unnecessary details,
I don't like that word, okay? I'm a 1D programmer. I like one level of abstraction. Anytime you're working with an abstraction of abstractions, it becomes this insanity to refactor. Like the moment you need to change something.
Are you saying that adding layer upon layer upon layer upon layer to something isn't necessarily a good idea? Because I clearly disagree, considering that I'm making this video right now.
You have to change so many fundamental assumptions. Wow, that's not even assumptions about what you've done. And it just like blows things up.
Yes. Anyone here? Anyone here have that happen to them? Anyone here work in really abstracted environments to make every problem feel simple? Anyone here?
We've all been there. I would argue dependency injection's the opposite version of the same problem. It's still kind of abstraction, but it results in a similar chaos. There's a lot of ways you can end up in abstraction hell. And yeah, I have not, by the time we're talking about abstractions, we've already probably lost the plot.
I work in an enterprise platform in which every single problem needs to feel simple, and therefore a simple problem, which is one line of code at the end of the day, feels nice. But the moment you need to change it, the amount of underlying things you need to change to remain this one line of code being nice is crazy.
Man, it would really suck if you had a return type definition on every single function in your code base so that when you changed what one dependency was returning, you had to go and update every single type for every single layer that uses that. Good thing nobody in this community or the people that we're talking to here would ever recommend something like that when you can infer the return type and have a lot of those additional steps not actually need to exist. That'd be crazy.
Find that abstractions.
I think Theo is throwing some low-key shade. Maybe he's theoizing. I forget it.
Though they look nice in their end product, like, you tell me this does not feel good. When you come up with an abstraction that when you write it out in like its final line, it's like one line of code and you're like, dot, do that, dot, done that. Boom, look at me.
Even the hand gestures are the same. Prime is so consistent. It's incredible. I don't want to say trivially, but like in a couple years, a Prime AI is 100% achievable because there is like deterministic behavior with this motherfucker. It doesn't matter what day of the week, how well slept he is, what he's been up to. You put the same thing in front of him and say, give me your opinion. It's going to come out exactly the same every single time.
Have you ever seen the HTMX? The HTMX logo that was generated. Not that one. Come on, it's the one where Prime's riding the camel or something. I mean, it's basically done. Prime is basically AI. Wow, I really can't find it. Oh, man. Anyways.
Raise of hands. How many people agree with that statement? You reach that point, it's so nice.
It is so nice.
How good I am. You feel it.
The exact same. God, that's hilarious. Maple just said in chat, Prime is Turing complete. Yep.
So smooth.
I totally
The same the hand in the face.
agree
Oh my
with
God.
me, okay? I was right on that one. I was 100% right on this one. Pre-watched, pre-reacted.
And then somebody comes along and is like, I need to add one. And you're just like, my life. I hate myself. And I hate everything here. And I'm going to quit my job. Right? Like, it's just like you somehow ruin your life over like the simplest request because you think you have something great. And then all of a sudden you're completely wrong because your abstraction just slightly changes. And now you're refactoring an abstraction that's built on an abstraction that's built on an abstraction. And your whole life crumbles. I hate it.
Defining one type of thing in terms of another. Polymorphism, being able to access things of different types through the same interface.
Pretty much all of this is functional programming minus inheritance, but I'm sure there's some sort of like type field property inheritance that you can do, right? I'm sure that it literally exists where you can just like map over the properties from one onto another object, and it's like
it's like a thing. You can have inheritance in Haskell. Yeah.
face. And encapsulation, which
Look. You know what? I'm going to tweet this out. Okay? If you're that good at functional programming, you can have inheritance. Okay? Here, I'll tag Theo and I'll tag Tej. Okay? And then I'll say, you're welcome, the Primogen. Okay? There.
which allows us to hide.
Polymorphism isn't just an OO principle, right? I mean, polymorphism.
All right. We have our first definition of OO.
Yeah.
We have 4 principles that make up what is object-oriented: abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism, and encapsulation. And with that, let's actually swap back to slides.
I was really hoping he was going to say that's also functional. Pretty much that is functional programming, right? Like that legitimately, those 4 points minus inheritance. Inheritance probably you could remove off that. Abstraction, encapsulation. I forget the other one. Polymorphism. Like, it's not like any of those aren't functional programming also. It's emotionally painful, okay? It's emotionally painful. But hey, Pister Labs, appreciate this reaction. I know you didn't like that part. Okay, sorry you didn't like my full reaction. Okay, I tried my best out there. I don't know if you ever do that, but sometimes you just say things and they don't come out necessarily correct.
You can still, like, you can feel the immense ego that the Primogen has to hold now. You know, it's crushing him. Just how good he feels about himself. It's a burden now. You can just hear it.
But hey, W Professor.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Hey, like and
W Professor.
If he's your professor, you killed it. Like, yeah, that's awesome. I hope there are more and more professors like him that are actually part of these communities online, because as I've said a bunch, and I have more videos coming out about it soon, your presence in the community and your networking and the people you know matters way more than any technical ability or anything you can put on your resume, especially in the current state of the market. You get jobs by being involved. You don't get jobs by filling your resume with cool sounding shit. And if you're
Disagree. Somewhat. I'm going to make a video about it, but I think there's something that's missing from the current landscape of tech recruitment and hiring that nobody is looking at. I've talked to Melky about this behind the scenes. He agrees with me. So I'm going to make a video about it. As far as I can tell, nobody's saying what I think I'm going to say. So I'm going to do like a soft disagree here. It's not always about who you know. Sometimes it is about your skill, but not in the way that you think. Anyways, I'm going to save it. It'll be another stream or video or something. Maybe we'll get like a multi-layered Inception react to Spiro's spicy take on the tech industry recruitment junk.
Professors deep enough in these communities that he's like watching these things, maybe he pops up in chat and stuff and encourages similar behaviors from his students. That's huge. And being involved in these communities that early is massive. Yeah.
Bam, subscribe. Bam, I'm liking it. Professor using Prime videos. W Professor. I know, still a W. A W is a W. That was fun. Hey, thank you very much. The name
already subscribed
is the reactogen.
I want to riff on
right?
this, specifically the encapsulation bit, because I am so tired of this point coming from the OOP people. In my opinion, functional programming does a much better job of encapsulation than OOP does, because functional programming encapsulates logic into individual boxes separate from your data. I'd much rather have my logic encapsulated than my data plus the logic baked in as weird properties. I hate the use of the word encapsulation in these types of things because it makes it sound like other solutions aren't well all separated. And I have found that my ability to understand a piece of code and what it affects, in that same sense I would use encapsulation to discuss, is much, much better in FP than it is in OOP. And it's just weird putting it in this list. Of this list, abstraction is a weird term, and usually once you're talking about it, you've already lost like your way. Inheritance, almost always bad. Polymorphism, usually pretty bad. And encapsulation, nonsense term. If this is how OOP is defined, then once again, I am very happy I'm not an OOP guy, because I seriously think it is one of the biggest brain rots that academia prescribed to us in the software dev world. And if Haskell or even like Erlang had caught on at MIT instead of C and C++, we would be in a very different world right now. If you want me to talk more about this OOP versus FP stuff, let me know in the comments. If enough of you say so, maybe I'll actually do it, because I hate this topic. I'm so done with it. But if I need to talk about it more, I will. Let me know what you think.
Okay. I will admit that OOP makes it way easier for you to abstract to such a degree that you lose sight of what's going on. And by comparison, FP kind of like heavily leads towards the other direction, where you can look at a function with inputs and outputs, and generally in a vacuum, you understand what it's going to do. It's not a black box, but it's like a walled garden. I guess would be one way to say it. But I get that. I get the point, and I would even argue that the proof is in some of the OOP based languages and frameworks that we use currently, which have contributed to some hellish web development practices because of their OOP nature. So if you look at something like okay, I would argue NPM node packages where you layer one over top of another as you pull down libraries upon libraries to get, individual functions. That's kind of like a form of OOP hell in a way. It's like the package management level of OOP, where it's like, what are you doing? And like, why is this so crazy? Why is there so much stuff going on? So I get it. But I'm gonna do a video and a stream about this. I do think that developers tend to be more lazy than not, and there is a way to have well, excuse me, to have your cake and eat it too. You can overcome the abstraction hell that comes with OOP if you borrow some of the principles of FP. And maybe I'll save that for something else, but I'm just gonna say that, in kind of as like a Spiroism retort to Theo. Yeah, how about that? Okay, well, that's it. I'm gonna call it. I'll close this. I will pop myself up like that. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I appreciate it. Kind of started out slow. I don't really like how it started out, but I think the React video was pretty funny, and the web component article was not bad if you like some educational stuff. Yeah, so I'll be at it again probably next week, and thank you all, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Until then, don't do FP unless you ask your parents first, okay? Ask your parents before you do FP. Dangerous stuff. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. Much appreciated.